Hello there, folks. My name is Spoonks, and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was Venom: Let There Be Carnage, making $3.9 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to $202 million and its worldwide total to $441 million. So this is now officially the second movie this year to surpass $200 million domestically, of course behind Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is such an amazing achievement. I remember earlier this year when pretty much everyone didn't really know how this year was going to turn out. We were all wondering maybe if even one film was going to surpass this milestone, let alone two. So the fact that this movie was able to do that, as well as Shang-Chi, shows how recovery is as quickly as we hoped. It is moving at a better pace than many of us probably expected it to do, and this is such a novel achievement. The fact that this movie was such a huge hit is something to praise and cheer about. The fact that I know it's Venom and it's really not that big of a deal when it comes to this movie, but in the grand scheme of things and where we are right now, this is such an achievement, and I'm very happy that this movie was able to do so. I don't think it's going to surpass Shang-Chi, though. It's still, I believe, so close yet so far, but I think it can definitely get close to the initial total of the first film's $213 million domestically. I don't think it's going to surpass it, but even if it could get there, it's still something to praise about. And also, worldwide, it is about probably $60 million from crossing the $500 million milestone worldwide, and I think it's still got some steam left in it to get there. It's definitely not going to get there in this web series because it's already at number 5, and the numbers are so low for it domestically, so it's going to get knocked off. But I'm certain it's going to get to at least 500 million before it closes its theatrical window, which is, again, would be a monumental achievement. And even if the film leaves next week, what a way to go out. Again, crossing the $200 million milestone is such an achievement, so I don't know what else to say, but props to you, Venom: Let There Be Carnage. You had a stupendous theatrical release. You single-handedly brought the movie theater industry back, and while you did have a slump in your second week, you were able to get back on track and become a huge success. So once again, good job everyone who worked on this movie. Number 4 was No Time to Die, making $4.5 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to $150 million and its worldwide total to $708 million. So this is another movie that recently crossed a milestone. It crossed $150 million domestically, which is very good, and that just puts it just $10 million away from A Quiet Place Part 2's domestic total. We'll see if it can surpass that while it's still in. And worldwide, it has now surpassed $700 million worldwide. That puts it just a few hairs closer to Fast 9's $722 million. We'll see if it can get there or maybe even surpass it. It seems very likely, but who knows? Maybe something happens. But overall, this is still another very solid weekend for the film. Even with it being now available to watch at home on demand, people are still going out to see it at the theater, choosing to support it, seeing it at the big screen the way it was meant to be seen, and that's really good and shows that it's able to maintain its core audience, and word of mouth is still pretty good with this movie. We'll see if it stays in the top 5, but it's looking like it may be slowing down a bit. It's at 4 million right now, and it's about to be a very crowded holiday season. But even if so, once again, this is still a very successful movie, and I think that we should all be pretty happy and satisfied with how well it did. Number 3 was Dune, making $5.5 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $93 million and a worldwide total of $353 million. So I think it's safe to say that this movie will become the 11th film this year to surpass $100 million domestically. We'll talk about the 10th film to do so this year in a moment. And it will become the second film by Warner Brothers to cross this milestone domestically as well, behind Godzilla vs. Kong, which I believe this movie will also surpass as well. And in terms of the worldwide numbers, it should get to 400 million very soon. So once again, another solid weekend for the film. Like Venom, Let There Be Carnage, it had a few bumps, well, mainly one bump in the road, but it quickly brought itself back up. Its word of mouth seems to be doing better than expected, especially after the second week caused some concerns, and it's still maintaining that audience and still bringing people back to the theater, even with it also being available to watch on HBO Max, which is incredible. And also, that's been the kind of the killer for many of these Warner Brothers movies, the fact that they're released on HBO Max, and with weeks and weeks on end, more people would continue to rather watch them on the streaming service than in the theater. But this movie's doing the opposite. It's not doing horrible on the streaming service, but seeing how well this movie's doing, it seems that this movie is the outlier to that sort of narrative. So once again, another solid weekend, and it should continue to do well for weeks to come. Number 2 was Clifford the Big Red Dog, making $16.6 million this weekend, and since it opened on Wednesday as opposed to the traditional Friday release, that adds to a domestic total of $22 million, and the worldwide totals stay the same since it hasn't really opened in any international markets at the moment. But this movie still had a very strong opening weekend. It had the third biggest opening weekend for a family film released post-pandemic, topping the Boss Baby family businesses, opening by just around $600,000. That is insane, and sits behind The Addams Family 2 and Space Jam: A New Legacy's opening weekends. The movie also only costed a reported $64 million, and I think that's a safe and moderate budget, so I think the movie's definitely going to make its budget back domestically, and I think the worldwide totals will help get it to the doubling point. I think word of mouth is going to be very strong with this movie because families and audiences seem to really like it. I mean, my audience ate this crap up. They could not get enough of this movie. And once again, we're around the holidays. They're starting to get into gear. Thanksgiving is next week, so I think that's going to help this movie out. I mean, a certain holiday that happened last Thursday also helped this movie out quite a bit. And the movie was able to do all of this while also being released at home on Paramount Plus, which is also fantastic. So Clifford seems to be starting off pretty good here. This is a pretty strong start for the film, and I'm curious to see where this movie goes from here. I think it will be one of the bigger family films of the year in the likes of The Croods or maybe even Space Jam domestically at the very least. So we'll see where it goes from here. But right now, things are looking pretty good for the Big Red Dog. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, and that was Eternals, making $26 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to $118 million and its worldwide total to $281 million. So first things first, this movie was able to make its initial $200 million budget back, mostly thanks to the international numbers. That is very good. All it has to do now is get to the doubling point, which is 400 million, to break even. We'll see if it can manage to do that in the long run. It also was the 10th film this year domestically to surpass $100 million. So now all of the 10 highest grossing movies of the year domestically have made at least or more than $100 million. That is fantastic. It once again shows that box office recovery is slowly but surely improving, and it just makes me so happy that more of these movies are coming out and crossing these milestones. That is great. But the big thing everyone is talking about, and probably the reason you clicked on this video, is the drop-off. Now, it's not as huge as Black Widow. Hell, it's even better than Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and Dune. It only fell 61%, which is about on par with Captain America, the First Avenger, I believe. In fact, in the large grand scheme of things, this hold is a lot better than most of the films that came out this year. but it does show that word of mouth isn't as well or as strong as some of the other Marvel films. I mean, it's definitely not as strong as Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and it's probably not going to do nearly as well as many people would have expected this movie to do, considering how mixed and divisive this movie really is. I don't think we're going to see something similar to Shang-Chi, and I think we're going to see something similar to the lesser Marvel films. Not to put a damper on those films, but just how well they did box office. I don't want to compare this to Black Widow because that had a different release strategy. It was released in theaters and on Disney Plus for $30. But I think we're going to see something similar to like the first Ant-Man, the first Captain America, and maybe even the first Thor with this movie. And this movie's also going to have to really pick up because, again, it's a crowded holiday release window, and we got two big releases. One of them is definitely going to steal this movie's audience away from it, and I think this movie's going to really have to pick up its steam if it wants to be up in the same levels as the other Marvel movies. I don't want to make this sound all negatively because right now it is doing well. It's one of the biggest movies of the year. It made over its initial budget, but I think once again we're gonna see something on the same levels as those lesser Marvel films than what we typically see from them. So it was a serviceable weekend, but it could have been better in my opinion. Hopefully it does what Dune and Venom Let There Be Carnage did and just pick up its pace and quickly shatter expectations that I had, because I know a lot of people were concerned about how well Venom and Dune would do after those second week drops. And who knows, maybe this movie will continue to have better holds in this weekend and surprise everyone. And if it does, I'll be happy. But right now, it's looking like it's probably going to do fine at best. But we'll see. And those were the top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters this weekend. And this weekend we got 2 major new releases hitting theaters, the first one being King Richard. This is the sports drama slash biopic about the Williams sisters, Venus and Serena, the huge tennis ball players and sensations, and how they became to be those sensations with the help of their coach, the title character himself, played by Will Smith. There is a lot of buzz around the movie. It's gotten insanely good reviews, some of which is even awards worthy. Some people are saying that it could even get a nomination for Best Picture, which is very good. They've been marketing it a lot. I think they've been doing a pretty good job with the promotion for the film. And I think that word of mouth is pretty well. It's not like everywhere I go someone's talking about it, but people are talking about it and they got the word out. Sure, people are interested in this movie. I don't think it's going to have a huge blockbuster opening weekend. Like, it's not going to top No Time to Die, let alone Venom. But I think we're going to see something that surprises people in a way. Because with all of the positive reviews and how they've been marketing it, I think we're going to see something that catches people's eye and maybe goes, oh, wow, this movie actually did pretty well for itself. A couple things that might bring this movie down: it's releasing in a crowded holiday release schedule, and this is the point where we get all of these, feel good, tug at your heartstrings, capture your heart type of movies, and I think that'll probably affect this movie in a way. And it will also, another thing is that it's a Warner Brothers movie. That means it will be released in theaters and on HBO Max for free the same day when it comes out. So that's also going to take a bite out of this movie's box office success in some way, shape, or form, but we'll see how well this movie does. And the other film releasing this weekend is Ghostbusters Afterlife. This is a long-awaited reboot slash sequel of sorts of the Ghostbusters franchise. It was originally supposed to come out last year, but you know what happened, and it caused the film to get delayed several times. Now the movie's finally out. I think they did a really good job with the marketing. I've seen tons of promotion for it. The buzz is all around with this movie. I've seen tons of people talk about it and get excited about it. And reviews so far have been good. From what I've heard, it's pretty good for the most part. There are some negative reviews, but for the most part, I've heard good things. We'll see how I think of the movie later this week. And on top of that, it will only be released in theaters, so obviously, no matter how well this movie does, there's only one way to justify how well it will do. So we'll see how it does. We'll see if it can become one of the bigger blockbusters. I don't think it's going to be as big as Venom or Black Widow, but I can see it being in the same range as Shang-Chi and Fast and the Furious 9. That's 70 million range, I think, because I think it's a big movie, but I don't think it's like going to like blow the doors off of everyone. But I do think it'll do pretty well for itself. It'll definitely be the biggest release since probably Venom Let There Be Carnage, but not to that degree is what I'm saying. But we'll see how well this movie does, as well as the rest of the movies that land in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you guys think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit that subscribe button. Follow me on all of the social media links right there. And until next time, guys, stay sharp.